Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. This is the Northeastern University LinkedIn webinar. We're really excited to have everybody here. Before we get started, just for the few of you that have just joined the session, if you are having, we're going to do some housekeeping stuff first, and then we're going to dive right in. So if you're having any technical difficulties at all with Blackboard Collaborate, you want to call the Northeastern University Help Desk. That number is 617-373-4357. It's also in the chat box. Also, to optimize your frame rate, which basically means in layman's terms to make this process and the program work smoothly, we've pasted a link in the chat box as well, so I can repaste that once we get started. And today, you don't have to worry about having a webcam or an audio feature because we are only going to be utilizing the chat box feature. So when we ask you some questions throughout the program, just feel free to answer in the chat box. And also, throughout the program, feel free to ask your own questions. So we'll be keeping a pulse on any of the questions there. Yeah, and Sabrina just posted the frame rate link, so if you wanted to check that out, if you feel like you could get a better quality program. But yeah, that's all of our housekeeping stuff. Yeah. So let's get started. My name is Kelly, Kelly Scott. I'm an Assistant Director of Career Development here at Northeastern University, and I also manage all of our social media. So follow us on Career Coach NU on Instagram and Twitter. That's me and the intern behind the scenes.
Awesome. My name is Sabrina Woods. I'm an Associate Director here at Northeastern. I'm also a huge LinkedIn fan and teach a lot of the LinkedIn workshops here at NU and even get a chance to teach LinkedIn at other universities as a guest speaker. So we're both basically really big fans of the tool. We're glad to be able to reach all of you and share with you some expertise, hopefully improve your profiles and get you using the tool even more than maybe you're using it now.
Mm-hmm. So before we get started, in the chat box, what are you excited to learn today? What's one thing that you're excited to learn from this session about LinkedIn? And feel free to share in the chat box. We'll give you a minute to do that, and then we'll share some of the answers with the group here. Great, so someone just said LinkedIn. Ron just said LinkedIn as job finding tool. Yeah, we're going to go over networking. And John L. said setting up a good profile. That's what we're going to be going over first. Learning more about your industry, good profile again.
Fantastic.
These are great answers. And you haven't mentioned anything we're not going to go over, so that's good too.
Another thing, just as one more quick business question, are you guys able to hear us okay? If you are able to hear us, you can either raise your hand or you can put in yes. Great. Getting lots of yeses.
Very low. Okay, good to know.
Excellent. Okay, we're going to do our best to be really close to the microphone here. And I think, any other thoughts or questions before we kick her off? We're good.
I think we're good.
So I'm going to go ahead and start taking us through this presentation. We're going to be in PowerPoint for a couple of slides, but then the rest of the time we're going to be right in the LinkedIn tool itself. One quick side note is we're going to actually be taking you through a handout that was emailed to you by Kelly yesterday. If you don't see the handout, or if you don't have a hard copy handy nearby, you can also go to the website. I'm going to show you that real quick before we go into the PowerPoint itself, just so you know it's there. From the home page, Northeastern University Career Development, you could hover over Jobs and Internships, and you slide down to the social media, second to the bottom. Once you open that up, you'll see our LinkedIn section, and click on LinkedIn Guide. You'll see, for example, our 10-point checklist. after we do a few PowerPoint slides, we're going to actually dive in and go through about 5 or 6 of those, followed by the networking aspects and career building aspects and job search. Okay, so just know that that's there. If you don't happen to have that handout right in front of you, it will be kind of like your outline for today's session. All right, let me jump back over to the handout, the PowerPoint here. And so here's the question that we have. You've got a basic profile up. Now what? We've got a whole bunch of things we're going to cover. We're going to talk about how and why LinkedIn is valuable. Sometimes I call that the shoulder shrug or the why bother, right?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, should I really be spending time on this tool? What's it going to do for me, or how can it help? So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to dive into profile, and Kelly's going to take you through 5 or 6 of those really specific points for your profile. We're hoping that you're going to be all-stars by the time you're done with this webinar so that you know how you can really stand out when someone lands on your LinkedIn profile. 2 things in particular that we want to play a lot of emphasis to or put a lot of emphasis on are going to be having a really strong summary and having compelling media links. Some of you might even be scratching your head going, what's a media link? We're going to take you through what they are and how to actually add them to your profile. We'll also mention how to customize your LinkedIn name, how you can basically have your own URL that you can add to a resume, add into an email signature, or add to a business card so that people can very easily, by a quick click, go in and see your profile. We're also going to cover very quickly the really polite and professional way to connect with people by sending out customized invitations. And then we're going to dive into the networking and growing your presence kind of aspects, especially with contributing to groups. We'll also be mentioning a tool called Informational Interviews and how you might use connections in groups to actually ask for and do an informational interview. We'll close with researching companies, just a quick tips on following companies and looking up to see what's going on the company homepage. So what we hear, Kelly and I hear, especially from recruiters, is that digital footprint of yours really matters. If, for example, Kelly became an HR recruiter, there's a 75% chance that she'd be required to research candidates online at some point in that process, maybe before they came in for an interview or at some point before they're hired. Now here's the good news. 85% of those HR folks say they've been influenced, at least to some extent, by something they find about a candidate. So it's sort of like, even if you only watch half of our presentation and only make yourself a strong profile, you're at least ahead of the game because you know that profile is going to be seen during that job search process. Now, we're hoping you stay for more than a half hour, but hey, okay, if you have to bow out, at least make sure you represent Northeastern well and have a good profile.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other point, and I think a lot of people already know this, is that, recruiters are using social media. They're using it to find candidates, and they're using it to screen candidates, and LinkedIn is their #1 choice. What I like to do also is bring LinkedIn to life a little bit. It's really fun if we can kind of share some stories, share some successes that have happened. Some of the successes I'm going to talk about, just a couple slides, have to do with LinkedIn groups. So that's a screenshot of some of the groups that I belong to. Hopefully that Northeastern Alumni, Northeastern U Alumni group is one that you belong to, as well as the Northeastern University Career Development. Those are 2 big ones on that page that we're both really would love to have you join us in.
And the Northeastern Alumni one has over 21,000 alumni in it. So it's
Impressive.
A great resource to connect with other alums, which we know is an important part of networking.
Not to mention the group Kelly manages just hit the 10,000 mark. Woo! Woo! Very cool. All right. Let me share a funny story with you. I was driving from Boston up to Portland, Maine. This was about 2 or 3 years ago, and I was headed to a career services conference. I just walked in the door, and you know how, after you've been driving for a couple hours, sometimes you just, you're slightly disoriented because you're trying to figure out, you're in a dark hotel room trying to figure out where do you register. Well, a woman comes down the stairs, and she yells across the lobby, "Sabrina!" And I put on a fake smile, and I walked towards her. not knowing who she was and feeling a little embarrassed. The good news was that Eva walked up to me and right away said, Sabrina, I know you from the CCTF LinkedIn group. Insert jaw drop. I was like, what? You know me from a picture that's like, what is it, half an inch by half?
Yeah.
Those pictures are tiny on LinkedIn. But I contributed comments and different posts and wanted to share in this particular career counselor group. And she picked me out of a crowd because she'd seen my name and actually seen my picture enough. So I thought that was like an eye-opening moment when I thought, you really can grow a presence and you really can make connections in this social media tool. So it made me excited. So let's talk about another example that's a little more concrete. Anne, who Kelly and I worked with when she was doing her internship in our department, came up to me one day and she said, I'm applying for a job at Fisher College. And I noticed through LinkedIn that you're connected to Heather, the director of that center. Now here's the irony. I met Heather in Portland, Maine at that same conference. So, it all starts in Maine, I guess. Anyway, so Heather was someone I got a chance to chat with for maybe a half hour, which was a decent amount of time. So when Anne said, do you know her well enough to let her know I've applied for her position? I said, sure. So I sent a note to Heather and let her know that Anne had applied. Long story short, 2 to 3 interviews later, Heather hired Anne for her position in her career center. So the fact that LinkedIn could allow Anne to find out who knows this director, that's one of the things that really helped this process happen. Helped her get a recommendation from me, which is just a nice thing when someone can recommend you when you're in this job search process. So that's just one story. And there's loads more. Maybe we'll be able to tell some at the end. But what we're going to do now is Kelly and I are going to actually physically swap places. I'm going to have you guys grab your handout, and we're going to go right into the profile building, starting with headlines. So maybe you want 2 windows open, or maybe you just want to listen along and have the hard copy of your handout there. But I'm going to go ahead and escape. We're going to spend the next big portion of the workshop right in LinkedIn itself. Okay, so headlines.
Awesome. Thank you, Sabrina. So what we're looking at now is, this is my LinkedIn profile. If you want to link in with me, feel free. Just customize your message so I know who you are.
Absolutely.
Which we'll get to at networking etiquette. But anyway, so if you have your worksheet out, or if you're even just looking at the LinkedIn for Networking page on our website, we're going to go in order. There is a lot to talk about when we're talking about LinkedIn, so we're not going to be able to cover every single thing. But Sabrina and I talked before, of course, when we were preparing, and we picked out the 5 or 6 things that we think are the most relevant and most important for you guys. So with that said, this is what your profile should look like in edit mode. This is what it looks like to you, and just something quick to show you. You can always see what it looks like to other people, so I always think that's a pretty cool feature. So we're going to start in order. If we look at your 10-point checklist for a savvy profile, let's start with the headline. So this is my headline. It's always good to customize your headline. The one thing I would say for those of you who are students, you don't want to have something that just says student at Northeastern University. I would suggest doing something a little bit more tailored to whether it's what you want to do, or even if you are employed, it can be your current job title, of course, so like, for example, project manager, but then also think about what are the things that you're good at. What are the skills that you want to showcase? Because to me, right, this is like your personal PR statement. So the first thing someone's going to see when they look you up, what would you want that to be? And there's actually a great link if you're looking at the digital copy of your worksheet from Forbes that gives some really good examples of different headlines you could use. So mine has my job title in it, some of my skills. So I'm a career coach, but I also had mentioned I manage the social media, so digital marketing. And then these are a couple of my interests. I'm Gen Y geek. I love talking about millennial culture and workplace culture. And then also I was on the civic organization for the city of Boston. And that was something that I was really proud of, so I wanted to list that in there. And there's really no limit. You can kind of create it how you want to create it, but definitely something to think about. So if you could go to your chat box, has anyone actually customized their headline? And if so, would you mind sharing it with us in the chat? And I'm going to give everyone maybe 30 seconds to do that. Yeah, and so while I'm doing that, let's look at Sabrina's. And see how important the headline is, because it pops up when we're doing a search, right? So Sabrina's, I don't know if you want to talk quickly about yours.
So for mine, I wear a couple different hats. So outside of Northeastern, I'm a holistic career life coach. As mentioned, I'm a LinkedIn trainer, get a chance to teach at other universities. And then I put in higher education professional. And my last little bit's a little different. I've got collaborator and connector. What you can choose to do is sort of add a personality characteristic or an interest or something that's beyond just your work identity that can differentiate you. And so I hope that people that meet me see me as that connector and collaborator. In fact, I was chatting with my boss earlier, and she said, "Oh, you're such a connector." So it's funny. I do get a chance to be that connector.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also helpful, I think, to ask your colleagues and people you trust, especially those who you work with, what do you think I'm good at? And that might be a really good, at least, jump start to think about what would I want in my headline, and also, what do I want to include in my summary, which we're going to get to in a few minutes. But let's look at some of what people have shared.
We've got one person that wrote she didn't even know it was a feature and talked about how great this training is, so now she'll be able to go in and customize it.
Awesome. I'm glad. So let me show you. It's so easy to customize it. So you just hover over. Oops, I hate when it does this. Okay. Hover over, and then there's a little pencil, and you can just change it there. And then LinkedIn is nice enough to even give us some examples. So they're really helpful with the process, but that kind of wraps up the headline. If you have questions, of course, put it in the chat box.
We do actually have one. We have someone that wrote educator for over 8 years, jewelry designer. There's a comma there, but I don't see the rest of their blurb. Maybe they're still going to add in some more. But yeah, you can add in the number of years of experience and then, different parts of your work, things you're interested in. There's a lot of freedom here. And you can't do this on a resume, so it's really nice that we can do it in LinkedIn.
Right. Awesome. Great. So let's move on to the photo. The photo, I think, we don't need to spend that much time on it. I would say headshot or just a picture of you by yourself or in the element in which you work. A lot of people will take pictures at conferences when they're all suited up. Others will get some, if you are in private practice or if you own your own business, sometimes it's nice to even pay someone to take a really nice photo of you. But honestly, even just taking a shot of yourself with your computer initially is great. And I would just, you can just change it by uploading it. LinkedIn does suggest dimensions so that you're not uploading a pixely photo. But professional attire is always good. And the other thing to remember, too, I think, is this is you, people are going to Google you, make sure this is how you want to appear. Not everyone always agrees, but people do make judgments based on how you look in your photo. So we've told students, we had one student who actually had a tiara on in her LinkedIn photo.
Yikes.
Chuckle there. So having that conversation, do you really think a tiara is super professional? Yeah, it was interesting. So I think use good judgment. Yeah. I don't think it is that, it's not rocket science there.
Yeah, and we do actually have a question about the headline, so let me just throw this one out. This question is whether or not the headline matters in terms of keyword search.
Great. That's an excellent question. Yes, it does matter. So just it's the internet. The more often you can use keywords in your profile as a whole, the better. I purposely put Digital Marketing Pro and Career Coach in my headline, knowing that if I were looking for a new job, those are the key things that I would want. And if there is a recruiter who is using the LinkedIn Recruiter, they actually can do a search based on keyword, and they'll put in, so say they were looking for a career counselor that has digital marketing experience, they might put in their search, social media, digital, and career counseling. The likelihood of me coming up to the top is higher if I have those keywords in my headline and throughout the profile.
There are actually 4 sections I've heard that are most important when it comes to keyword search. Headline, summary, job title, and skills section. Let me read that, say that one more time. The 4 most important areas for keyword search would be your headline, your summary, your job title, and your skills section. One quick side comment, if you've got a really weird job title like marketing guru, change it to marketing manager, or use the fun title. Someone had director of relevance on his in his background. I have no idea what that means. So he should add in IT and big data, because he had all this IT and big data experience. So remember to use multiple words if you've got some weird ones.
Yeah, great, thank you. Okay, so the other thing, we're going to go down to number 3. So customizing your profile URL. I think this is the easiest thing, and it looks like makes you look so smart. So your URL is right here. And you can see mine's customized already. It's so easy. You're just going to click the little wheel here. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah, right here. And then it's right over here. LinkedIn is always changing. So click there, and then it actually sets it up for you, and all you're doing is just customizing this. And you click Save, and it will update. So look at your, if you have a second, look at your LinkedIn profile URL now. If it has a bunch of numbers, go ahead and update it. And we'll give you a minute to do that. Yeah. So let's just do that again so you guys can remember. All right, so I'm in my profile as me, as you. You know it's edit mode because every time you hover over something, it turns a different color. So hover over, click the wheel. It's going to throw you off and show you what your public profile looks like. And so you're going to go to the right-hand corner here and click the pencil, and then you can change it. If you have a common name, like me, Kelly Scott, I just put my maiden name in the middle. I've seen profiles that have, like, Kelly Scott 2. I think that's totally fine. The simpler the better. And I like putting the URL actually on my resume heading. So when I'm applying jobs and someone opens up my resume digitally, you can actually click the link and it will bring you right to my public profile. Perfect. Good. All right. So let's go to the summary. The summary, I think, how many people actually, let's take a second and ask this question. How many people have a summary? You can either raise your hand or you can just put yes in the chat box. Okay, we got one. Ron has a summary. Great. So we meet with clients all the time. People really struggle, I find, with writing the summary because it's so open-ended and there are so many directions you can take it. And I don't think there's necessarily a right, well, there's definitely a few wrong ways, but there's no one right way. So with that said, think about the summary as a 30-second commercial about yourself. Okay, so we got a few people. Be sure to indicate your industry or include the industry that you are in. some related keywords. So we've talked a lot about keywords and their importance. And actually on your worksheet, we have prep questions to help you start thinking about how can you develop the summary. And you can actually read some examples. My other suggestion would be use LinkedIn to look at profiles of people that are doing things that you want to do. Maybe, using an extreme example here, but maybe you want to work at Google as a software engineer. So do a LinkedIn search and try to find some people who are software engineers at Google and check out their summaries. Are they really long? Are they really short? What keywords are you seeing over and over again? Are you including those keywords? The other thing is, if you are struggling with the summary, my suggestion would be start bare bones, and you don't have to update it right away. Write it in a Word doc, but I usually suggest start with presently I do this, in the past I've done this, in the future I'd like to do this, as good bare bones, because think about it as your elevator speech. And then in my summary, let's go to my public profile here. I actually include specialties at the bottom so I can reiterate my keywords. So I have my keywords in there again. So I'm not even halfway down my page and I've said my keywords multiple times. And I broke it down this way. You have to think about your industry, so model it after others you see in your industry.
We can also show them career development page.
Yeah, and let's go over to the career development page, and I'll show you where you can kind of check out some other examples of the summary. Oops. Okay. So there are some prefix questions here, but let's look at some sample examples. And these are actually people's summaries, correct?
Okay.
Yeah.
Justin, the very first one, is a Northeastern alum, and check out his first sentence.
Yeah. Passion and diligence are two traits I believe most reflect me as an individual. So another question I get a lot, and I'm sure Sabrina does, is should my LinkedIn profile look exactly like my resume? Yes and no. I think that's up to you, but what I would say is you can't write a summary in your resume the same way you can write something in LinkedIn, so make it more personal. It should be complementing your resume, not necessarily duplicating every single thing. Otherwise, you'd have to have a lot of LinkedIn profiles. Okay.
So yeah, feel free to come back and check out each of these. They're really different. And I think it's kind of nice to see there's a really wide variety of how people go about it. Steve here at the bottom has a sense of humor. Look at his second or third to last bullet. He says any tech, any ATS, which is applicant tracking system, any challenge, any day. So he's got this sort of like, you know, macho attitude, like bring it on.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, that's not everybody's personality style, but wow, the point is you can really show who you are and multiple dimensions of who you are in a summary section on LinkedIn, in a way that you can't on a resume. So use it. Oh, and we can show you real quick what the questions look like. We won't go through them, but if we go back arrow, yeah. So staring at a blank screen is hard, but you might decide to tackle some of these key questions and then build the summary from there.
Yeah. Yeah. So do what's best for you. I find brainstorming this out and letting it marinate a couple days and then going back is the best way. And you know, just like your resume, your LinkedIn profile should be fluid. It should always be changing. You're always trying new things, or you should always be kind of updating it. Just getting started is the hardest part, which is why we do a webinar.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next part, I'm gonna skip down to number 9, and we're gonna talk briefly about media links. So let's go back here. So media links can be added into any section. So right here, you actually see an example of a media link in my profile. And what that is it's a URL to the blog for our department, which is something that I manage. So I want to showcase to those looking at my profile, specifically people I'm connected to, that they can see my work. And this is another benefit to LinkedIn that you can't get through a resume. And you can actually add media anywhere. So you can see if you have a document, maybe you wrote a paper that's really compelling and related to your industry, photos, links, and the URLs are great because they turn into that. Any kinds of videos, so maybe let's say you work in media and you just produced a short video on YouTube and you wanted to share that. This is an easy way to do that, almost like a visual portfolio or
turn your profile into a portfolio.
Absolutely. If you've done any presentations, another easy way to do that. And you can actually just click it and you can upload a file or insert the link right there, no problem.
Very easy to do and crazy not to take advantage of. Why not show off examples of your work? Allow people to see what you're capable of.
Mm-hmm. And you can do this across your profile. So I have one at the very beginning, and then I write for a lot of blogs, so I actually include these in my publications, and the link is in there if you go to my public profile. But check it out, see what works for you. And another thing is you can actually move your sections around. So if you wanted to put your education at the top, you could actually click here, move things around. So the options are really pretty wide.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any questions so far about, let's see. If
we have any questions, please put them in the chat box.
I see people commenting about not being able to do the public profile URL. Someone said, I've got a common name. I'll need to focus on it after the webinar. Yeah, if you have a really common name, you're going to have to be creative with what you choose for it. But don't worry too much if you have to go with, if I had to do Sabrina Wood 617, I mean, it'd be an area code for Boston. I don't think that'd be a bad thing. So don't worry too much. Just keep it as short as it can be and as close to your name as possible.
Yeah. Including a middle initial is also another option.
Oh, and we got one other person saying they cannot add their portfolio link at NEU on here. So I know we don't have you right here in the room, so I'm afraid we won't be able to walk over and actually help you with this. But I want to share one thing. When I've added media links myself and when I've helped colleagues do it, there's been times when I've had to try it 3 or 4 times. And it's like, why is that the case? So I think a little perseverance and actually trying to load it 3 or 4 times, hitting refresh in between, you might have to do. So that's just a weird heads up. So have a little patience with it and see what you can do.
Right. Okay. And keep the questions in the comments coming for sure. We're trying to keep up, and if we didn't answer anything, we can always follow up with you.
Oh, let's see. We do have one question saying, if we change the profile, is there a stored history to be careful about? I don't know about it being stored anywhere, but my hope is that you're only putting things on LinkedIn that you really want to show off anyway, so that you wouldn't really have to worry if there was some kind of a stored history.
For those of you who are looking for jobs, so if you're using LinkedIn to look for jobs or you're thinking about transitioning, I want to point out this on the right here. If you are looking for jobs and you're nervous about updating your profile, thinking that maybe that would be suspicious, I'm only mentioning this because I've been asked this multiple times. You can actually just turn off your notifications here. It's right at the top, or right in the middle, I guess, of your edit mode of your profile. That way, when you're updating your summary, maybe you change things, your whole network isn't gonna know that you changed and updated your headline or your summary or whatever. I kind of always keep mine off because I'm constantly editing it, and I would suggest the same to all of you. But of course, it's your profile, so that's completely up to you. Great. So I'm going to turn it over to Sabrina.
I just thought of one other really quick one related to those of you who are job seeking and you're, can I say, you're out about your job search, meaning you're not fully employed right now, and needing to keep it sort of stealth. So if you're finishing up a graduate degree, finishing up an undergrad degree, or if your employer knows you're looking, you can actually list what you're going after in your profile. Let me jump in, see if I can find that, find a quick example. Let me show you Jessica Yan here, the research scientist. She's doing her PhD, and she's listed her goals as the last sentence of her summary. So she writes, currently, I'm seeking employment opportunities that will allow me to use my diverse skill set to develop and promote technologies that benefit human health. And when I worked with Jessica, one of her concerns was, I don't know where I want to go. And I said, well, tell me a little bit about what you want. She's like, I don't know. It could be data analytics. It could be pharma. It could be biotech. And I said, why don't you list all three? So she's keeping her options open and keeping it broad. Again, this can be an approach if you are, if people know you're job searching and you can have that in your summary. I think it's a really good thing. And I think Kelly at the beginning said, list where you're going next as part of your summary. So that's what you'd be doing. Okay. We're going to shift away from profile. This is a 1-hour workshop where we're combining 2 LinkedIn sessions that total 2.5-hour programming. So we're giving you the best of LinkedIn 1 and the best of LinkedIn 2. Yeah. So that's why we're only able to spend that first half hour on profile building. But we're going to, like I said, shift gears, and you've got lots of support here on the website with being able to follow up with each of those 10 items. They're all hyperlinked to more info. So jumping in now, or shifting our gears to building our networks, we're going to go for a short period back into the PowerPoint presentation. And this is pretty straightforward, the idea to add to your connections. Sometimes I'll have people thinking, well, why should I bother connecting with my Aunt Emily? She happens to work in the tech field, and I'm targeting marketing. So regardless of what people do, I think it's great to connect with all those friends and family and classmates and past coworkers, current coworkers, because it's really not just about those individual connections, it's also about who they are connected to. So that aunt who happens to, or that cousin who happens to work in tech might know other people that work in marketing communications, so, or actually do work in marketing communications themselves. So think broadly about sending out those connections. When you send an invite, oh wow, how many of us get, 90% of our invitations come in generic. Yeah. It's such
It really bothers me. It bothers me only because when someone requests to link in with me, my thought is I'm going to be opening my entire network up to this person. Theoretically, that person could ask me to introduce them to anybody in my network, and I want to make sure I feel comfortable doing that. Now, I don't need to know you super personally, but a quick note shows and tells me why you want to connect and, you know, how we know each other. And there's actually a portion in your profile you can note how you know that person. But I think it's really, really important, and it's
polite. It's professional.
Yeah.
It's building good rapport.
You wouldn't walk up to someone and say, I'd like to add you to my network in person. So not yet. So you shouldn't be doing that online.
So when you send the invitation, add their name, a personal message, and the words thank you. Helps with our rapport building. Okay. When we start talking about LinkedIn and jump back into the tool for our networking piece, we're going to be mentioning different levels of connections. So Kelly would be my first level connection. Anyone that Kelly knows would be considered my second level connection. So it's basically a friend of a friend. Those are 2 levels you want to pay attention to. Third feels a little too far out. I wouldn't really worry about that or spend any time on that one. And I'd spend a lot of time on group. We're going to go back into LinkedIn and share about that in just a few minutes. But just know our key focus here is first, second, and group. Now, let me come back to Kelly for a minute. Let's pretend that I was moving back to the Midwest. I'm originally from the Midwest. Let's say I wanted to land a job at a career center in Chicago. And maybe Kelly has a friend in Chicago. So I might be able to ask Kelly to introduce me. I can do it in a couple different ways. One, I can ask for an introduction formally through LinkedIn. On your handout and on the website, we take you through that step by step. But the essential process is just for me to go on to the person's LinkedIn page who I'm interested in getting to know and seeing, oh, okay, drop-down menu, Kelly's my connection there. I send Kelly a note, and that note can be forwarded on, if Kelly chooses to, right through the system, through LinkedIn. My other option is just to email her or text her or call her.
Yeah.
So, you don't have to use the introduction system, but it's one option. And continuing on with building up our networks, on your home page, kind of similar to what a lot of people do on Facebook, you can add an update. Now on Facebook, you're going to be talking about your spring break, your dog, what you had for breakfast, where you're going out tonight. We would like for you to leave that on Facebook. So in LinkedIn, you're going to be posting, and you guys probably already assume this, things related to your industry, related to your academics, related to your interest areas that are more on the professional side. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be posting things about career counseling and things about the Myers-Briggs personality tool and things about social media. Once in a while, I'll do things about, productivity or how to do certain things that are like maybe be a good speaker. So that's my opportunity to share content, hit the like button when I like someone's content, or even add a comment. So it can be this back and forth with individuals. Initially, it's basically posted on your first level connections home pages. But if I hit the like button for Kelly, let's say she put the blog up there and basically said, here's our latest blog on LinkedIn. If I hit the like button, all of my first level connections could potentially see Kelly's posts. So it is an opportunity to grow a reputation, grow your expertise. This one isn't super effective, though, when you have a smaller network. So as your network grows, you might shift your energy and do more of these kinds of updates. When your network's smaller, do more in groups. Okay, so that's just a little kind of side strategy. Mm-hmm. So talking about groups, you know what? I think groups has to go down as my favorite part of LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yours too.
I love groups. I love groups because it's easy to search for people who you have a connection with at some kind of connection. So like if you're an alum, there's an alum group. So you already have something in common, which if anyone has ever networked in person is key.
Super key.
So important to like make that connection. That's just as important in digital. So I love the groups for that reason. I love the groups because people are posting about a certain industry topic, and I feel more comfortable commenting. And the likelihood is that if you're engaged in the group, more people are going to comment. Quick story. I was working with a student who wanted to get clinical experience as a psych major, but there are very limited options for that. And so I was really struggling. I went into a career development LinkedIn group, and I posted a question, does anyone have any ideas how this person could get clinical experience without getting a master's degree or being enrolled in a master's degree program? And I had so many people, I would say at least so many people for me, like 10 people commented.
That's a lot.
Yeah, with like great ideas that I had never even thought of. So then I felt so good going back to the student and saying, hey, you're right, you can't do clinical, but these are options that are similar to clinical that I got ideas from via LinkedIn from peers that I don't even necessarily know, and I actually got connected to a couple of people through that group. So they're really a great resource, especially if you're exploring industries or careers. I think the groups are great.
All right, so we're both on board, and hopefully you're now excited. Let's shift gears just a little bit and talk to you about informational interviews as a sort of a side conversation. Then we're going to circle back into LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. So let me turn it back over to Kelly.
So how many people have done an informational interview, or I should back up, how many people know what an informational interview is? And if you do, just say, okay, great. So we have a couple saying yes, yes, I do. Great. Awesome. Okay. So, yeah, so for those of you who don't, an informational interview is basically a traditional interview backwards. So instead of you being interviewed about your skills, you're interviewing someone who's either in a place you'd like to be professionally or working at a particular company you're interested in, and you're asking them questions about their career and what they do, and specifically, I think, career paths. So how did you get your job? What's your day-to-day look like? How can I make myself a more attractive candidate if I wanted to transition into this sector? And you can actually find, and we bring this up because it's so important to do these informational interviews when you're starting to look for jobs. I think it is probably the cornerstone of what networking is really built around. And LinkedIn is such a great resource to find people who are doing things that you want to do that you may not have been able to find through networking before the internet.
Yeah.
So with that said, we kind of went through this. You're not asking for a job. That is the key takeaway. If you remember, if you don't know what an informational interview is, or if this is a new concept for you, you never want to ask somebody for a job. So the best analogy I can make is if you are out and you're looking to meet someone, and let's say you're at a restaurant or a bar, if you're 21, and you see someone that you're attracted to, or you're trying to make a new friend, you would never walk up to someone and say, hey, would you like to be my boyfriend? You would walk up to them and say, hi, I like your shirt.
Much better.
Or, hey, I noticed that you're wearing a Northeastern shirt. Do you go to Northeastern? You would have some kind of, you'd look for a commonality, and then you might start talking and you ask them questions about themselves, and then maybe you ask them out on a date. That's informational interviewing. Asking someone for a job off the bat, to me, is similar to asking somebody to be a boyfriend or to hang out with them without ever asking them any other questions. So a job is a long-term commitment. Someone's not just going to hire someone out of the blue without knowing about their credentials, and the networking allows you to meet people who can give you advice, but also connect you with others that, let's say you talk to someone in tech, you learn all about tech, that person and you really connect, you stay in touch, they're going to think of you, maybe a job comes across their desk, or maybe they have a friend who happens to mention to them, I'm really looking for a software engineer and I'm having trouble finding one. Do you know anyone in your network that might be looking for someone? Oh, you know what? Yes, I just had a conversation about a month ago with a girl named Kelly. I think she'd be great. Let me reach out to her for you. That is the beauty of informational interviewing, but it takes time. And you need to find people, right? So when we're thinking about informational interviewing, these are things you can consider. How do you prep for a specific career? How to make a career change? What are some new developments or things that are coming down the road in that industry? Maybe if you want to work at a particular company or in a particular industry, what's the culture like? I know higher ed is very different culture than corporate, so that's a really obvious example. But it's important to know what kind of culture you want to work in. That's information that you cannot get online on a company website. Great.
Perfect. All right, with this sort of base knowledge about informational interviews and this idea that it's helping you grow your network and learn important things about that field and how to break into the field, let's think about jumping back into LinkedIn, or let's jump back into LinkedIn and talk about groups to join, and how you might then actually search for and ask for an informational interview. Search for people and ask for an informational interview. When you hover over the interest bar here at the top, you will see groups as one of the drop-down menus. I'm sure most of you have already at least joined one or two groups. So two of them that we mentioned early on were the Northeastern U Alumni group, the one that has like 20,000, and then our group, the Northeastern University Career Development Group. To find a group, you go up to the top search bar and actually type in Northeastern University, or type in finance, or type in photography, or type in PR, whatever your keywords are for an industry or looking for a school that you've attended. So once I type in the keyword at the top, I go on to the left-hand side, and I choose groups from the drop-down menu, again, over here on the left. And it's going to reset it, and there I'm just going to see the career development group, the alumni networking. Oddly, Northeastern U alumni doesn't come up in this search, so you might want to type that U by itself so that you can join that one since it's the largest.
Usually I'll type in Northeastern, and then I'll just weed out some of the things that have nothing to do with the university.
Perfect. So let's go into the Northeastern University Career Development group for a moment. And it's just slow to change over. Once I get in, I'm going to go into members. Members is one of the choices on the top bar. When you first open it up, what you get is the discussions, and you can see that Kelly has posted a discussion item right here. Oh, surprise, surprise! And I posted the second one. How's your LinkedIn summary? That was a great article, by the way. In fact, I got to go back, study it more. It was so good. I'm going to go in a little deeper and answer some of the questions that William Aruda posted for us in that particular blog. Really good. Anyway, I digress, don't I? We could talk, I think Kelly and I could do an all-day seminar on LinkedIn together.
Yeah.
This tool has so much to it. But let's stay focused here. Under members, I can go and I can put in a keyword. It could be a job title. I could type in financial analyst, put it in quotes, project manager, put it in quotes, because otherwise you pick up project and manager separate. But I can also do an area, an industry area. Earlier today I was typing in sustainability. Maybe I'm doing a career change and I'm really interested in this up-and-coming field, an important area. I can put sustainability in and see what comes up. Hey, this is awesome. 270 people within the Northeastern Career Development Group have the word sustainability somewhere in the profile. And if that feels like it's too much, I want it smaller, I can add in, maybe I am in project management or project manager. Maybe I'll just do manage. Yeah, try that. This might give me too small of a result, but then you can always back it off, so you can just keep changing it. I got 28. Okay. Now I'm going to go down here to Jody, project manager at Greener U. From this, inside the group, I can actually send a message. If I go and click on Jody, and I look at the top, it says send in mail. That would mean if I wanted to reach out and ask for an informational interview, I'd have to pay for LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So I don't want to pay for LinkedIn. Kelly and I both, everything we're showing you is from a free LinkedIn account. So I'm going to go back arrow, and when I'm back inside the group, that's where I can actually hit the send message button. I'm not asking him to connect with me because that might not go anywhere,
no.
But I can send a simple message. Now we can take a really quick side step here back into the LinkedIn site and know that down below here, sorry, I'm scrolling quite a bit, under the job search section, it says sample request for informational interview. So we have some language here for undergraduate students. I know it's too small on the screen, you can't read it, but know that it's in here. Graduating seniors, we've got several experienced professionals on this call today, alumni. So know that you might use one of these templates to be able to say this request in a polite, professional way. Here's the other tip. The more customized you make it, why you want to talk to them in particular, the better. Okay, it looks like we might have some questions coming in.
So is it bad form to message someone without being in the group? That's a great question. So in the chat box, I wrote that, so you won't be able to message someone in the group without being in the group, but if you're asking, can you connect with someone and message them like a customized message connection, you can do that, but you want to be careful about just connecting with anyone, even if it is a personalized message, because they can ding you back. So they can say, no, I don't know this person. And if you have too many of those, then LinkedIn will actually block your account, and then you have to call LinkedIn, and they'll ask you a few questions, and that's so that people aren't getting spammed. So really, it's for your benefit, I think. But you know, I've connected with people, and I've written a customized message within the connection request, and for the most part, people do respond and connect with me when I explain. And the other side of that coin is if they don't want to connect with me, then they just ignore my request.
Yeah. So our goal here, though, is we might not want to ask a perfect stranger to connect with us, but what we're doing here is within a group sending them a message. Now, Kelly, if I send one out, do you think that one person is going to get back to me and say yes? No.
Maybe, I would say my return rate is like maybe 60 to 70% of the messages I send, maybe even less, maybe 50%.
So I think Kelly's got really good odds, and I'm impressed. What I'll often tell alumni and students is sit down one Sunday night and find 10 people that work in sustainability, staying with our example for a moment, send them each a customized note, and expect to maybe hear back from one or two. If you kind of go at it with sort of this expectation that not everyone's going to reply, but that one or two that do reply, and you have a really good conversation with, and you get some great tips that actually help you down your path. I've had many people say, oh yeah, I reached out to a bunch, heard back from one, it was worth it. So again, don't be surprised if you don't hear back from a lot, but the more customized you make it, the better. And Northeastern alumni you have a closer connection to than a random person in an industry group. So I think that's a great place to start. And it makes me really happy for alumni and for students that we have such a robust group.
Yeah.
If we came from a tiny college, we wouldn't have nearly as many people to reach out to.
For sure.
So let's see. Oh, we've got just a few more minutes left, so I'm going to jump back in for one moment. I think we got that topic covered, but what I want you to know is that when you hover over the Connections tab at the top, you can also click Find Alumni. It's just another way to see all the alumni information. Here I can go by looking at where they live, where they work, what they do, and I can customize it so it's just my group members. Okay, I could select that. So you might, at a later point, come back in and play around with this tool so that you can see the alumni in this way, and obviously anyone you select is then down below. So it's an awesome way to look at this information.
I think it's great, too, if you're thinking of relocating. Maybe I wanted to move to New York City, and I wanted to work in education. I can actually click Greater New York City. I can click Education, and then it's going to actually filter all of my connections. Oh, right there, yep. And you can scroll down to the bottom, and it's going to show me all these people that I can connect to. It will tell me how I'm connected to this person, if at all. And it also gives me the year that they graduated in the bottom right-hand corner. I use that too. If maybe I don't have their email, I can find them through the Alumni Center just by going to northeastern.edu/alumni. And that's a great resource to use in tandem with LinkedIn.
I was going to see if I could. We mentioned that alumni directory, I think, in our informational interviewing handout. Let me show you that. Go hover over Jobs and Internships. Click on Networking and Informational Interviewing. Then click Informational Interviewing here. When you scroll down, sorry about the long scrolls here, Northeastern Alumni Directory via Husky Nation on the Alumni Relations website. So these clicks will allow you to go in and make sure you have access to the Alumni Directory that way. Okay. Let's see, we're just now 1 minute left. We had one more topic, and that was just to mention about companies. So let me just say, for example, let's pretend that I'm interested in data storage, and I'm putting up the top here EMC, and then I go over and I change my filter to be company, and then EMC is listed here. Since that's a local employer, I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to say, here I can see what's happening with the organization. So it's their blog, it's their homepage here, adding their latest updates. I can click the Careers tab to see what they have posted, and I can go and see how I'm connected in the upper right-hand corner, and even hit the follow button, which means their posts will end up on my homepage. Great way if you've got target companies you're interested in staying in the loop about is to follow those companies. So we just wanted to make sure you had that. Any last questions? We'll take one or two more questions, and we'll have us wrapped up in the next moment or two. Any other questions popping in? Or if anybody has a question, feel free to pop it in.
Somebody did ask, and Valerie was kind enough to answer before I could even answer. Who asked? Erin asked, do you need a password to get into Husky Nation? I've tried and was not able to get in. Yes, you do need a password, but you can actually call the alumni office, and Valerie was kind enough to give us that number, because I don't even know that off the top of my head. So that's in the chat box, 373-2656, area code 617. Or you can email alumni@neu.edu, and then they'll give you a special ID number, and they'll give you a password, and you can actually access that no problem. So great question.
Perfect. At this point, we got one more question.
So when sending to your contacts, does your entire list automatically get sent an invite? So I'm assuming you're talking about your email contacts.
So one of the, I'm guessing when you're saying this, if you set up a LinkedIn account and you accidentally give LinkedIn access to your email, LinkedIn will then go in and send invitations to your entire address book. If that's what you're talking about here, does your entire email automatically get sent an invitation? So one word of caution. If LinkedIn ever asks you for a password for your email account, do not give it to them, because I think you want to individually select who you send your invitation to. A friend of mine had her ex-boyfriend's mother and her dentist get requests for LinkedIn, and she shut out her countdown because of this debacle. Many other invites that she didn't want sent, so be careful with that. And there was another question on here, when contacts endorse your skills, is that public, or do you have to push it out? Let me show yours.
Yep.
Go ahead and talk, and I'll...
Yeah, so when contacts endorse your skills, I believe it's public. I don't think it necessarily comes up in the feed, though. It just alerts you that someone endorsed your skill. Mm-hmm. So then we've asked recruiters how much this matters to them. Excuse me. Most recruiters have told us that the skills are nice. Going back to the keyword thing, it's important for your profile, but does it sway them either way? So just because I only have 2 people endorse me for social media marketing, is that going to mean a recruiter's not going to think I'm good at that skill? No.
Yeah, so don't get hung up on the numbers, but make sure you set your initial skills section up to really reflect your skill set and what you want to use in the future.
Right.
And maybe even go in and clean them out once in a while in case you got recommended or whatever, endorsed for something that you don't want to be endorsed for. But it also means recommendations have become more important.
Yes.
Say, Kelly?
Yeah, I agree. So if you can get someone to actually write you a brief recommendation, that's better. And a quick comment about the endorsing a skill. I had somebody endorse me for buying. Actually, a good friend of mine, her husband, endorsed me for that. I don't want to be endorsed for buying. I think he did that.
Retail buying, merchandising?
Clearly I'm very good at buying clothes or influencing his wife to buy clothes. So I actually said, no, I don't want to be endorsed for that skill. So you have that option. It allows you to control that.
I just noticed one other question, and we'll keep these going just for another minute or two because we know people need to get back to whatever else they were doing. But the question is, should you follow up if you discover someone has checked you out on LinkedIn? So this is an option that you can look to see who's viewed you, And if someone has viewed your profile recently that you would really like to speak with, there's nothing wrong with using that as an excuse. Quick story, a guy named Michael, a Northeastern alum, was actually doing just that. He looked at who had viewed his profile recently, and he noticed that an architect who he had actually been wanting to reach out to, let's pretend her name is Sarah because I don't remember her name. So let's just say Sarah was this architect who wanted to, he had wanted to get in touch with. He used that interaction as an excuse to reach out to her, and they ended up having lunch the next day. So I call it my fastest LinkedIn to lunch story. True story.
That's such a cool story, I think.
Yeah. And I think we've got every question on
Yeah.
here.
I have been invited by people that I would have never expected. How do you and then also, how have you been an all-star? Okay, so in regards to Debbie's comment, yes, I find you will get people who are requesting to connect with you. You can do whatever you want. I would say it's your profile, be comfortable. Just know that the more people you are connected to, the more likely you're going to be connected to someone you want to be connected to.
You show up in more searches for recruiters.
Right.
And you can see more profiles. So if I'm able to see a second level connections profile, I can find out what group they're in, and if we're in the same group, I can send them a message. So it helps me to be more connected. And Kelly and I would both love to connect with you for that very reason.
Yes, absolutely.
All-star.
Okay, so what is an all-star? How do you become an all-star? An all-star is LinkedIn's reward for having a complete profile, so and the strength of your profile. So if you follow our guidelines on the worksheet we gave you, and
you can be an all-star.
You can be an all-star, yeah. Basically, it's filling out as many of the profile sections as you find necessary. I mean, I have a very robust profile. It's based on an algorithm, I think, in terms of like what makes someone an all-star. So just filling out your profile to the fullest it can be.
Yeah. I don't know any more very, very specifics than that. There could be some criteria with number of connections, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing what you can do with Google too, and that is you can go and Google the question on LinkedIn, how do I become an all-star? You know, what needs to be complete, you know, and you'll see people have discussions about these kinds of things. The blog is also something that you can check out. So when you're wondering what's going on and something's changed, you can go to blog.linkedin.com. I don't really want it. Well, I can go to that page and you can see it, and then I can pop back. So this talks about whatever the latest and greatest changes are on LinkedIn. If you follow Kelly and I, we both post pretty frequently on our homepage about LinkedIn. I'd probably say I will post anywhere from 3 to 5 times a week, something related to LinkedIn on my homepage.
Sabrina is a LinkedIn expert.
I love this tool, so I play on it all the time. And yeah, I think we've got all the questions.